But here's what he did.
Rhyme it. Do you know how to rhyme it? Oh, please just rhyme it.
Then he really gets into
Do
it.
you know how to rhyme it?
Yes,
Of course. We will.
you don't even
be
have to think
rocking
about
LA. So let's rhyme it today. Rhyme it. We are gonna rhyme it. Just
Yeah,
rhyme
that's
it.
where he just rammed it.
Everybody. Amazing.
I'm not going to remember any of it.
That's good. That's the way to go.
All over the Rams today and rhyme it.
I mean, now he's like on his feet.
How are you guys?
Whose house?
Wow.
Rhyme it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers the Pod. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined by my brother and the other host of this show, Nick. And Nick, Sean McVay's back. The Rams are back in action. Seems like the entire core is coming back. I see you have a little smile on your face. How are you today?
The prodigal prince has returned, and I'm not talking about myself. Sean McVay is the Rams head coach going into next year. Yeah, everybody collectively just take the weight off your chest and release a sigh because it feels amazing. I was already thinking that it was over, but 5 short days later, and here we are.
I see it. Like, I knew you had a feeling that it was all kind of coming to a close. And when we did our last podcast, I went back and listened to the end and how we kind of went through the conversation that he had with the press and everything like that. When you're such a crazy competitor, when you're so dedicated to the business, when you're so dedicated to your craft, it feels like it's almost impossible to step away. And Nick, the decision came within 48 hours on the 24th hour of McVay being undecided, right? He told his coaching staff that they could all go out and look for other jobs. And then 24 hours after the fact, he confirmed that he's coming back as the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. So some incredible news that was really kind of kicked off yesterday, Friday the 13th, by Jalen Ramsey, which was somewhat of a cryptic tweet. I don't know if a lot of people really kind of understood the meaning behind it, which a lot of Jalen's tweets are supposed to be directed that way, to where there's an underlying meaning that is only direct to him and not to his massive, massive Twitter audience. But there was some uncertainty that Jalen Ramsey wouldn't be coming back, that people thought that he played his last snap as a Ram. So there was that news. Everybody was trying to dissect what was happening there. And then about midway through the day, closer to like 4 p.m. Eastern, Sean McVay announces that he's coming back. You're seeing reports all across the league. And I think that there's a massive sigh of relief across Rams Nation, right? Because nobody really knows what we would have done. It's like you said on the last podcast, Nick, we kind of grew up with Sean McVay. We kind of grew up with this era, this regime, this core. So it would take a lot for fans to kind of reinvest in a brand new personality, right? As a brand new leader of the organization. So happy that it happened this way.
It sounds like they did have some kind of plan in place, the organization, for if he were have retired last year. So I'm assuming they probably have one in place this year as well. I think it would have just put Raheem as the head coach, which would have been interesting to say the least, especially particularly on who they brought in. And I think a lot of McVay's decision was, look, I don't like really the personnel that I have around me. I kind of want them all to find their own way because it didn't work this year. And I think maybe stepping down or like attempting to step down could have just been his way of being like, I don't want to, go through this right now and like fire every single person. I don't know because I don't know how it can happen so fast to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I'm back. Like, I don't know how you can make that turnaround.
There's a human element of it. Like, I'm trying to imagine where he was when the decision was made, what he was watching, if he was on his phone, if he was going back and forth with his wife, right? So there's a personal element to where, how did this all happen so quickly? That's what I said. So it was a 48-hour time frame. It was within the first 24 hours. You guys could all go out. Thomas Brown was interviewing with the Texans. Raheem Morris was interviewing yesterday. Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, tweeted out that he completed an interview with Raheem yesterday afternoon. So like things are moving. And I assume that the decision came so quick because he realized that the nature of the league, the way that it's moving so quickly, you kind of have to have things in place by a certain date for the sake of the organization, right? You don't want to delay a coaching search 2 weeks then everything is kind of delayed into the off season, and not everybody is onboarded and up to speed in the time frame that they're supposed to be, right? There's kind of like a typical template that you want to be able to follow in terms of the hire, the onboarding, the time to get adjusted and reacclimated to the culture. So there's a lot that kind of comes with it. But like Thomas Brown is somebody that I would definitely want to keep. But if Raheem wants to go and coach the Colts, there's a potential 3rd round comp pick that we would get back for Raheem going over to the Colts. So
right. Also,
not all lost.
If Raheem leaves, you got to think that he's going to take some of the staff with him. It's just how it goes, like whenever
very much so.
Mike McDaniels, is that his name? The Dolphins head coach took just kept poaching from the Niner staff as he was creating his entire, staff. So with leaves, you're going to see a lot of people depart. And I think that's kind of what McVay wants. What's amazing to me, though, is there was never a doubt Snead, Stafford, Cup, like that group was here no matter what. So
thank God.
It was really, I said this on the last podcast. It was Donald I was worried about. And I'm of the opinion where I think if you're going to get rid of Raheem and this new defensive coordinator comes in and has a different vision and thinks that they can get more without Jalen Ramsey, I think let him fly, go to a contender, I'm okay with seeing him part, especially after that tweet. And I know he said he didn't he don't take it like this is my last snap as a Ram. I just meant the Pro Bowl. Did you? I don't know how anybody could have read it that way. It was insanely I'm done. If this is the end, at least I went out with 2 interceptions.
Well, just want to clear the air. You don't want Jalen Ramsey to go anywhere, right?
I don't. I wouldn't be opposed to hearing offers.
So he's the one member of your core that you would be willing to part ways with, considering the fact that, he's a big cap hit. You're going to look to probably restructure a couple guys at the top. Maybe you could potentially get into the 1st round this year. You get back into the 1st round next year. Maybe you have 2 first-round picks next year. It's not something that I don't want to discuss that. When the time comes, I feel like we could potentially open the door of where is a good suit for Jalen Ramsey. What is the proper compensation we can get back for him? But going back to what you said with Raheem Morris and the way that he structures his defense, potentially we just looked at Kevin O'Connell, how he brought Wes Phillips with him right to Minnesota. So to your point, maybe he brings Eric Henderson. Maybe he brings Jonathan Cooley, who's the defensive backs coach. Maybe he brings Eric Yarber with him too. So that there's very much of a fear that I think is built in there. And then there's the other side of it too that we're looking at, right? Who's the next potential defensive coordinator who could step in and fill the vacancy for Raheem Morris, considering the success that we had with Brandon Staley back in 2020 and how much Jalen Ramsey was adaptive to that scheme, how much Aaron Donald loves some of the isolation where he could have his own individual one-on-one matchup because they're stunting, because they're moving defensive backs around, because linebackers are kind of coming to the line of scrimmage and faking a blitz and then dropping into zone coverage. There's so much from a schematic standpoint I feel like a new regime would be able to offer, instead of the stereotypical bend don't break defense, which is essentially another way to call Brandon Staley's defense and Vic Fangio's defense what it is. But I think there's a next level, there's an evolution to it that I feel like from a schematic standpoint, maybe Rams fans, players, personnel can all kind of really benefit from another mind in that spot.
Yeah. And, maybe they bring somebody in and Ramsey doesn't like the direction of the defense, and I don't think he's that kind of player. But, it could be a possibility where he kind of wants to be shopped. It's LA though. I feel like he probably wants to stay
I would think so.
If he can help it. Yeah. I mean, he won the ring. So
that Vic Fangio, Brandon Staley scheme allows him to kind of play around wherever he wants to play. Right. So it still gives him the flexibility. You're not in on Vic Fangio as one of
I'm very in. I'm just imagining what the team could look like if they brought him in.
Well, you could imagine the Vic Fangio and potentially Frank Reich as offensive coordinator, right?
Or
Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh my God, that would just be a powerhouse of a coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very interested in what Frank Reich could potentially offer, but I think just kind of going back to what Vic Fangio has to offer and potentially him or another disciple of that scheme, like Joe Barry was a disciple of that scheme, went over to Green Bay. You saw what Brandon Staley's doing with the Chargers right now, so very, very beneficial in terms of that organization and their direction. But I think, like, yeah, well, I guess we'll see what happens with Mike Williams and their game tomorrow.
Yeah,
But or
exactly.
is the game today?
It's today. It's
It's
why I
today.
have this Jaguars mug.
Right. There you go. There's the Jags mug.
Got the
Yeah,
ticket roll for like $2, and it's part of my picks. And I was like, you never see this old school Jaguars logo anymore. You know,
No,
it's
you
like,
never do.
It's like 1999 logo.
That is correct. And it's you know what that logo reminds me of? It reminds me of Mark Brunell and the 14-2 Fred Taylor Jacksonville Jaguars that I think got bounced in the divisional round. That team would have played the 1999 Rams in the Super Bowl potentially if they would have beaten the Titans.
Yeah,
I think that's how good that team was and what that logo represents to me.
Yeah,
which is it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot behind that logo. Fangio is a very interesting name, right? I think that's something that you go back to all the way to 2018, the Matt Nagy and Vic Fangio scheme that took us down in that Chicago Bears game where we were just defeated. We thought that Jared Goff was figured out. We thought that Sean McVay's offense holistically was figured out after they put up 6
and at the
points.
time, it actually was.
Yeah,
because it was used against us again in the biggest stage.
So so what I wanted to the picture that I wanted to paint was potentially you bring in somebody like Vic Fangio and then Frank Reich. If you remember the year before the Rams went to the Super Bowl against the Patriots, Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator who kept adding layers and wrinkles to the RPO offense after Carson Wentz went down. So the RPO offense with Nick Foles leading the helm was actually better with Frank Reich and without Carson Wentz in the mix. So I'm very, very interested to see. Frank Reich as a head coach is a pretty decent head coach, right? He has a decent record, I think 38-27. He's well liked across the league. I just didn't know when we talked about him in the last podcast if there was a direct correlation between those two. But 41 points in a Super Bowl the year before we put up 3 against Bill Belichick's defense, heavily, heavily interested in bringing him into the building.
That Super Bowl has rewarded Frank Reich a career as a head coach. And he has made some boneheaded calls since he's been a head coach, particularly bringing in Carson Wentz and then Matt Ryan. And I mean,
you could blame the front office equally for that too.
Right.
They just wanted to go.
And the GM.
Yep.
But I think, maybe if you put him back in his offensive coordinator box and you kind of, go for maybe give him the play calling and then allow McVay if he sees something to, kind of speak on it. But as a head coach, sometimes these guys, they like once they get the head coaching job, it's like the offense kind of gets figured out because they have too many spoons and like all these other different pots all over the place.
Yep.
So if you can kind of focus in on what you're really good at, like a Frank Reich or a Cliff Kingsbury. And then this one you have here, which actually is really interesting, Mike LaFleur.
I mean, I think we know from the way that the show is structured that brothers can be drastically different from one another.
Right. It's like the fact that he got fired and they tried to like have him fall on the Zach Wilson, Mike White sword this year is insane. The Jets were a defensive powerhouse, but their offense has had to score enough to get them in the playoff picture late into December.
Yeah.
And to make this guy when you had some of the worst quarterback play between your 3 quarterbacks I've ever seen, and then you want to pin it on the guy that's not throwing the ball and is just drawing up the scheme. I just think that was insane. He's going to get caught up really soon. Cliff Kingsbury certainly has some stink on him right now, I would think. I don't think people want to dive into that. I think that's the highest ceiling, though, if you get Cliff Kingsbury, because then you can kind of, he doesn't have to work with Kyler, who is going to kind of make up his own play if it was just like, oh, I can't throw it that deep, I'm just going to run. You force the quarterback to have to do what is in the scheme because Stafford's not going to, break out like an 11-yard run every now and then.
Right. Yeah. I mean, It's like, I mean, you can go back and forth. You can go Mike LaFleur, which was something that Jordan Rodriguez actually broke. Was it earlier today or was it yesterday that she had tweeted about him potentially being an option? It's definitely very real. And you would assume that because of the way that that breakup happened, right? Because Mike LaFleur is a very vocal guy, similar to the way that his older brother is. I believe it's his older brother in Matt LaFleur. But that's
Look it up.
yeah, you can. Yeah. So when we went back and listened to that Peter Schrager podcast, I forget what the name of it was, but it was specific to McVay. McVay was a co-host. He really dedicated a ton of time to talking about why Matt LaFleur was such an integral part about the way that they developed that offense, because he was constantly pushing on Sean McVay to evolve it to the next level, to be able to look at it from a different lens. If Mike LaFleur has that same ability, there's zero doubt that Sean McVay could identify that and bring it into the building fairly quickly, because there is also zero doubt that Sean McVay felt like he thought he was going to have more time with Matt LaFleur as his offensive coordinator. I thought that was that 2017 offense, the way that it came into the league, the way that it was just as revolutionary as it was. I don't know why I always go back to that Giants game that year in 2017 where they won like 43-6. I never seen anything like that in my childhood as a Rams fan outside of the Greatest Show on Turf. So it felt like there was this newness, right? So if Mike LaFleur, that team wins 7 games with the combination of Mike White, Joe Flacco, and Zach Wilson, like, where are their skilled players, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton on that Jets offense to where you can kind of hang your hat and say, well, you know, it's the players, you know. So it's such an interesting opportunity to be able to bring him into the building.
Who do you think is older?
Matt's
the head coach of Green Bay, right?
correct.
Correct. He's older. Younger brother Mike recently was the offensive coordinator of the New York Jets.
How old is Matt? 38?
I can look that up. Hold on.
Yeah, I would say Matt's 38, Mike's 35.
Matt LaFleur, 43.
Wow.
Looks great for 43.
It's because he uses the Just for Men to dye his little chin strap and goatee.
Are you revealing your tips?
It's a tip. You got to do what you got to do. Although you could probably see a little gray coming in here and here as I worried about Sean McVay's future.
Mike is 36.
Yeah, close. 36 and what was it, 43, Matt LaFleur?
Yeah, it's a big age gap.
So 36. So there's another big identifier, right? Sean McVay and Mike LaFleur are the exact same age, right? Maybe they have similar lifestyles. They've been brought up in the same kind of culture. You know, they both like to go out and have a tequila on the rocks. That to me is definitely something that's in play. If you
They
could,
both like NFC North quarterbacks.
yeah, and that's why also Cliff Kingsbury feels like it's in play. And I feel like I'm going back to what McVay's previously hired in the past, to where you had an older, more experienced defensive coordinator in Wade Phillips, and you always kind of went young with the offensive coordinator, right? You go Matt LaFleur, you go Zach Taylor, right? And you kind of evolve in that direction. So I feel like McVay probably feels like he needs another young revolutionary mind in the building. That could be Mike LaFleur.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know what Cliff Kingsbury really is as an offensive coordinator.
I thought the Wes Phillips of it all was just so cool when McVay took over, because it was just like this 30-year-old young coach mixed with like the oldest mind in football at the time. And it was just this like hodgepodge of like really new offense and like really old school defense. It's just such a shame that they were never able to cap off that.
That's what I'm saying. And Vic Fangio's defense isn't outdated by any means. You know, it's very much
the older end.
It's very much beneficial to your top personnel, right? You want to get them in isolated situations. You want to get them on one-on-ones. You want to keep your defensive backs consistently rotating, you know, positionless players. Jalen Ramsey could eventually convert himself into a safety in some specific schemes under a Fangio or a Brandon Staley type defense. To me, that is extraordinarily interesting if you can bring that back into the building, because that was one thing that you really kind of felt like you missed with Brandon Staley, was you had the top defense in the league, and it felt like the journey to the Super Bowl would have been a little bit more simplistic if you can carry Brandon Staley over from 2020 to 2021.
Right. But, you know, they didn't need it.
They didn't need it. They still got the job done. Pass rush wins Super Bowls.
And also the pass rush. The offense also had a nice little boom, you should say, with Stafford. That was a big reason.
I would think that was a minor piece of it too. Despite being ranked dead last in rushing throughout all of last year, similar to the way Tampa Bay is this year.
It's so.
They
I mean,
still
like,
got the job done.
it's so true though. Where you think of like last 5-7 years, and you think of the Super Bowl winning teams, and you're like, which one of them? Like, who was the best? Like, did any of them have like a top tier running back? Like, did any of them have the running back that they paid? And if it was, the 2018 Rams, then you could have said Todd Gurley, but they lost. So
I want to say the top 5 leading rushers this year all missed the playoffs.
Henry,
Chubb.
No, isn't the Chargers guy? He's got to be
Eckler.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was a top 5 in rushing. He's probably top 5 in total yards. He was the number 1 fantasy player in the PPR league. I would have to look. Let me see if I can pull that up really quick.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. While you're pulling it up, Bet Online. Basketball is back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at Bet Online. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest, always the easiest. Whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf, head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Well done, brother. Make sure you get on Bet Online today. Use promo code BELIEVE, and you could play some same game parlays. You play some fun bets for Wild Card Weekend. You make it interesting.
I got some stuff cooking up for you guys. Don't worry.
I felt like you did. I'm going to go back to this real quick before we jump into Wild Card Weekend and Nick's picks. Josh Jacobs, number 1, 1,653 yards. Derrick Henry, number 2, 1,538 yards. Nick Chubb, number 3. 1,525 yards. So there's your top 3. Saquon, your top 3 missed the playoffs. Saquon at number 4, 1,300 yards. Miles Sanders, number 5, almost 1,300 yards, 1,269 yards. And then Dalvin Cook is 6th. So, by the way, Miles Sanders is a free agent. Would like to see him paired with Cam Akers.
He's still playing. I hope they don't get rid of Cam Akers. I hope they keep him.
No, they're not. They're not going to. He's not hurting the cap next year. He's in the last year of his rookie deal. It's a perfect situation.
Yeah. I think McVay probably looked at what he had and was like, "Am I really going to retire with Stafford and Kupp and Cam Akers like having his best year and Aaron Donald?"
Retire in 3 years from now. When you turn 40, right? Like when the core is pretty much Stafford's going to be 40 years old in 4 years. Aaron Donald will be 34. Cooper Kupp will be 34. I
don't think Stafford wants to stop playing anytime soon. I mean, you're looking at Rodgers, and I mean Brady's the exception, but like, and Rodgers did have a really bad down year, but the 2 years prior to that, he was the MVP. Like Stafford doesn't want to go out. I mean, amazing stat for me personally. Stafford had more interceptions this year than Goff, and think about how many games the two played. Insane.
That's pretty insane.
Stafford doesn't want to go out like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, Stafford, I think, did he lead the league in terms of playoff teams for quarterbacks that threw interceptions during the season? It's kind of like the Dak Prescott stat this year. I think he threw 15.
Oh, last year? No, I think it was could have been Burrow.
Hold on, I'll tell you. 1 second.
Did you look up the other information?
Yeah, the runner, the
rusher. Right.
Yeah. Matthew Stafford and Trevor Lawrence were tied for most intercepted passes in 2021 with 17.
Oh,
so
fitting.
Didn't it's just Trev. I think might get his first playoff win today. Absolutely love that coach.
Oh my God, everybody feels like they're on the Chargers.
I'm trying to decipher how many play calls Doug Peterson made in that 2017 Super Bowl versus Frank Reich. We all know that the Philly was Doug Peterson.
No, it was Foles.
Yeah, what's
Foles? It was Foles. He runs up to him and says, "Should we do the Philly?" He's like, okay.
Yeah, good point. That one wasn't even Doug Peterson, right? So I'm wondering too, and similarly, like I would love to understand which percentage of the Super Bowl was called Kevin O'Connell versus Sean McVay and Frank Reich versus Doug Peterson in 17. 18 felt like it was strictly Sean McVay. 100% Sean McVay.
Yeah.
And then Zach Taylor goes on and gets a job with the Bengals, and the Bengals are now going to be, top team in the playoffs this year.
I don't know.
Yeah,
knocked out first round.
Really? You think the
Don't
Bengals
count
might
out
get one
Huntley.
knocked down in the first round?
Don't count out Huntley.
All right, let's see what we got for Nick's picks this week.
Oh yeah, are we ready?
I'm ready.
All right, guys. No theme song. I'm sorry.
Boo.
Ooh, I know. I know. Hey, look, we're getting more serious. We're into the playoffs. I don't know if you want to hear me singing Taylor Swift this week as you lay your entire wallet on the line. There's a couple games that I really, really like. Don't forget to use Bet Online, promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, not spelled actually like believe. The first one being, because it's today, it's my boys, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I love the coach. I think when you do something as remarkably stupid, like playing the starters in a meaningless game, and then one of them goes down, karma is not on your side. I don't know if the Chargers have enough of a deep threat without Mike Williams, because their other guy also had tore his ACL. I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah, Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
From last year, he tore his ACL. So he's coming back from it this year, right?
Right. So I'm just not. I'm not ready to 100% roll my LA points all over onto the Chargers. I don't think I'll ever do that. Like, I'm not just going to root for a team because they're also in LA. And I think the Jags, you always have to watch for the teams that kind of snuck in. Every single time, everybody kind of writes them off. And this year, those teams are Jacksonville and Tampa. And obviously one of them has Tom Brady, so nobody's writing them off. But I think people are already writing off Jacksonville. The game is in Duval Nation. There was recently a Jaguar that escaped from a Florida
I saw that.
A Florida zoo. And I don't know if that was like a PR stunt, but maybe it's the good luck that the Jags need. I think people are envisioning this game with like Herbert just kind of going up to our boy Trev at the end and being like, "Hey, good job, kid. Get him next year." But I don't think I think Staley's going to kind of put them in their own way. And the Jags I think they're just a well-coached team, a better coached team than the Chargers. And I'm going to run with them at the money line at plus 120. And
wow,
I can't believe it that I'm even betting on the Jags in the playoffs because they're there. But look, I'm happy with my decision to do that. I am.
They won a handful of playoff games with Blake Bortles, right? So what leads you to believe they can win playoff games with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence? And
the game, I mean, like, they're a home dog. I think on paper alone, a home dog should be considered as your.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of really fun skill players, right? You got Evan Ingram and Zay Jones and Tyler Dietney, right? There's a lot of fun that comes along with that offense. They have a really young, athletic offensive line, top draft picks on that line. Their front is strong. So young talent in the secondary. I'm very, very excited to watch that game.
And you always have to think about when people are already talking about a narrative that hasn't happened yet. Like, people in Jacksonville are already talking about, oh, well, look on the next year. And the Chargers are like, yeah, well, we've already seen the Chiefs. It's like, you don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen.
No,
like, let's take the plus 120 with the Jags and just move forward. And then
here's what I would I'll take it one step further because I want to parlay this in. I like, because Mike Williams is out and Austin Eckler is such a great pass catcher, his number's only at 37.5 at minus 125. So you could parlay the Jags money line with Austin Eckler over 37.5 receiving yards to bump up those odds a little bit, get you some more money.
What I would do is I would just take them independently, because I feel like if the Chargers win, he probably will have more.
So you got to think too, though, if they're playing from behind, it's a good way to kind of rack up some yards in garbage time too.
Right. I mean, there's a way both of those hit, but there's also a world where one hits and the other doesn't, and then you're just kind of back to start, which is essentially
right.
Which is nice.
You're right. We'll call that a little bit of a Dean's lock, I guess.
Moving on to my favorite bet of the entire wild card playoffs: Buffalo Bills minus 13.5. I don't know what could be done to make me bet on the Miami Dolphins right now. They put up 9 points against the Jets to sneak into the playoffs. They're starting a third-string quarterback. They had a complete blunder of a back half of the season. And now they're facing like an enemy that wants nothing more but to just kind of stomp on them. I mean, it's in division. It's going to be in Buffalo. Buffalo is the team of destiny, in my opinion, right now. I think they're going to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. I think they have the world of support behind them. They're talking about Damian potentially being at the game, or maybe just making like a little video in the hospital bed to send to the Jumbotron for the fans.
Well, he's out now. He's not even in the hospital anymore.
Oh, really? He's completely out? Amazing.
Yeah.
I thought he was still in bed rest.
They're talking about him potentially standing on the sideline.
Right,
Yeah.
which would be crazy. I just don't see a world where this game isn't similar to Rams Cardinals last year, where it's kind of just like never close, early 14-0 lead. Miami never kind of even has anything on offense. The under could be considered only for the fact that I don't think Miami is going to score many points at all, but I also think Buffalo has the chance to score 43 on their own. So
I could see like a 28-13 game where they kind of fall under that number of 43.5. I think that's a good call.
I think Buffalo's going to score 30 points. I almost want to take an alternate line of like Buffalo minus 20, just because I think that could easily hit, and I'm not even kidding.
Well, people were talking potentially largest playoff line in the Super Bowl era history, and I was like, wait. Let's go back to 2021, where the Rams were 14.5-point favorites over the Patriots in a Super Bowl before we talk about the damn wild card round.
How about a couple years later, the Patriots being the favorite against the Giants? Giants were like plus 16.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah, like people don't know. People don't know the facts. It's okay. It's okay.
That's why we got you.
Yeah. All your gambling needs. Yeah, Buffalo minus 13.5. I absolutely love it. If you want to get feisty, you can do a little tease with Jacksonville, get them to plus 8.5, and then Buffalo, you take out 8 points of 13. So then you only got them at minus 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Minus 5. I mean, I think that's fantastic. Jacksonville has to do their job and, keep it at plus 8.5. But I think that'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't have any special props in that game just because I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a question mark based on how the Bills.
Josh Allen, anytime touchdown scorer would be worth sprinkling.
As a rusher, yeah, I think that's a smart bet. What about Seattle and the Niners? You haven't talked about
the game. I'm not touching with a 39.5-foot pole. Because I want Seattle to win, but I don't see a world where they do.
So as I looked at I think it was Steve Wyke this morning from NFL Network was talking about how the weather in San Francisco is horrible. It's not football weather. It's rainy. It's cold. It's nasty.
Rainy
Could be beneficial for the Seahawks. California. Yeah. Well, it's northern California, right? So it's a little bit colder up there.
Yeah, I was going to golf today. I got the whole place to myself. My girls on a girls trip, and I was going to golf with my buddies. And of course, now we have to freaking pivot to bowling. Horrible.
You go to they don't have any simulators in Southern California. You go hit some balls into the screen.
I don't think my friends could do that.
No, they don't.
I don't think they could do that.
They would be shooting off the top of the wall.
They would break something.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, so you don't want to.
My golf swing's bad. Don't even ever golf with my friends.
I think it's fair to want to stay away from that game, but considering the weather, maybe Seattle plus 9.5 might be a play because I think that they're going to allow San Francisco to, the one Brock Purdy to kind of manage the game a little bit. I don't think they're going to try to score 38 points in that game. I think they're going to try to manage the time of possession. They're going to try to stick to the run, win a nasty game, and potentially that spread is a little bit closer than we would initially think.
Yeah, I think if gun to my head, I would take Seattle plus 9.5 if I needed to win a bet.
Yeah.
Only because I know that if San Fran gets up early, they're just going to run the crap out of the ball to get rid of time. And then Seattle can get a giant chunk play here. And then all of a sudden it's a 3-point game with a minute left.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just get 2 first downs and it's over.
I can't tell you though that this isn't the truth because it is. My whole year would be made if Seattle finds a way to win the game.
Oh my God. So agree. So heavily agree.
Whole rest
that
of the
would be
playoffs,
my favorite upset ever.
My feet are so high up on the couch after that happens, I am enjoying the rest of the ride every single second of it.
I want to take Bills Niners as the two teams to win their conference right now.
Yeah, Bills Niners. So today, 4:35 Eastern is Seahawks and Niners. That's the first wild card game. Tonight is the Chargers and the Jags at 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific time. And then tomorrow is Dolphins, Bills at 1:05, 10:05 Pacific time. And then Giants play 4:40. Giants, Vikings play 4:40. And then you got the Ravens and the Bengals at 8:15 tomorrow night. And then Monday night is
Dallas,
Dallas.
Tampa. I'm probably going to take Dallas in that game. Just straight up, that's not going to be a Nick pick. My last pick is I'm going to run with the -150 money line of the Minnesota Vikings. I've never seen a team with this record get this disrespected. Actually, that's not true. I have. Steelers, when they started that season 11-0.
Yeah.
And then they lost to the Browns because of like 2 horrible snaps over Ben Roethlisberger's head.
Oh no, I'm thinking of a different game.
I think this was like the 2020 season.
I was thinking of the no, it wasn't Jadeveon Clowney. It was Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph, where the snap went over his head. They were in the end zone.
Yeah.
Was that the same game?
Yeah, same game.
Oh, so it wasn't Big Ben. It was Mason Rudolph.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
the one I'm thinking, it was the 2020 season. The Steelers started 20 or 11-0, and then they petered out. And then they played the Browns in the playoffs, and they snap over Big Ben's head, and then recovered by the Browns to start the game.
Yes, franchise best 11-0, and it was 2019. So is that one of Big Ben's last years? Was it one of his last years?
He played one more year after that.
One more year. Yep, that's
He
fair.
played last year, and they made the playoffs, and they lost to Kansas City.
Yeah, there's some legitimate disrespect there. And you know what? It is a 4:40 game. It's not a 1 o'clock Kirk Cousins game where he's the Super Bowl MVP, but it's 4:40 against a team that many think is a better coach team than the Vikings right now, because everybody loves Brian Daboll.
I just disagree. I think Minnesota is great. I think they have probably the second most talented roster altogether, next to the Niners out of all the teams available. And I love what O'Connell did to this team, because they've reached where we thought they could have been with Zimmer. And there's a world where Minnesota goes out there and they score like 38 points, and the Giants and Danny Dimes are held to like 13. And now, all of a sudden, Minnesota is like this feisty, road team going into San Fran. So anything could happen. If you get hot right now, which is the time that you want to get hot, then you are officially a Super Bowl, not favorite, but you absolutely can make it. So
here's what happens. So if the Giants win their game, the Eagles would host the Giants, because it would be the 6th, unless Seattle wins the game, because the Eagles would play the lowest seed, right? So they would most likely get the Giants if they won that game. And then we would go Cowboys and Niners in the next week, which to me, I want to have the hardest possible path forward for the 49ers, which to me would be a top tier pass rush and, Cowboys going against the Niners. Yeah. Parsons.
Pass rush.
Top tier. Yeah. I'm interested to see how that's all going to unfold. And then was there one other game that we didn't talk about yet?
Oh, Ravens,
Baltimore, and Cincy.
Baltimore +9, I would take.
No Lamar.
Yeah, I know.
I don't even know if they're going to go with Huntley. I think the Bengals are going to win that game by like 21 points.
I don't.
No.
Divisional game. Burrow has actually played really poor against the Ravens. I think the Bengals win. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody, like every, ho-hum gambler out there is like, all right, San Francisco money line, Bills money line, Cincinnati Bengals money line. Yeah. And the first two are going to hit easily. And then it's going to be Sunday night, and they're going to be watching this game. And they're like, how the hell is Huntley driving down the field and scoring a game-winning touchdown right now? And there's going to be an underdog that wins.
Yeah.
Like there's no shot every single favorite pulls out.
I think everybody from an underdog perspective really likes the Giants and really likes the Jags.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those are your two underdogs that people are buying into.
I think it would be smart to do like just if you had $300, just be like, okay, Jacksonville, 100, New York Giants, 100, Bengals, 100, or Ravens, 100. So then that way, like, you know, if two of them hit, you're over the moon. If one of them hits,
One of them hits, and you're back to even.
Not really. I mean, if the Ravens hit, you're up. But if one of them hits, you're kind of okay. But yeah,
I think that that the Lamar Jackson situation is going to handcuff them to just bad football and unnecessary drama and unnecessary scrutiny to the way that they've handled the Lamar Jackson situation, which I think is really
But think about this: they win the game, they go to the next round. Lamar's back.
So he has a PCL tear, or it's a slight tear in his PCL, which is like the back of your knee. I was listening to AJ Hawk talk about it on the Pat McAfee show today. It's something that limits his mobility to the nth degree, right? He almost feels like there's something loose in your knee when you have a limited piece or a slight PCL tear. It doesn't mean that the PCL isn't in your knee any longer, but it's kind of like fading away, and you can't get surgery. You have to like wait for the recovery time to play itself out. You have to rehab really tough. So, and AJ Hawk was saying they play golf. Whenever he goes down into a squat, he can still feel the pressure of the PCL on the back of his knee. So I don't think it's a situation that Lamar Jackson thought it was going to be as severe as it was, and it turned out to be a much more severe injury that was continuously aggravated over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So
I expect him not to be a Raven next year.
Well, they said they might potentially place the franchise tag on him, and there's another variation of the franchise tag to where another team can come in and offer 2 first-round picks to take him on to their team. So you're essentially swapping 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson, which I feel like 15, 20 teams would be lined up to do that. So
for some reason, I think he just makes so much sense in Oakland.
Yeah, well, that would be fun.
That would be a super fun team that goes like 10-7.
Devontae goes nowhere. Waller goes nowhere. Renfro gets healthy again. Josh Jacobs, maybe if Lamar comes back, Josh Jacobs, 0 doubt, signs with that team again.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I'll run it back for you guys with the official slate. Jags plus 120, Bills minus 13.5, Vikings minus 155. Those are the only bets that I'm going to take. I might take Dallas minus 140. And that's a gamble that's 100% for my heart because I don't want to see Tom Brady make a playoff push with an 8-9 record.
Yeah.
Their team is just so pitiful. Their coach is horrible. I mean, this would be a true, like, give him the freaking Harvard masterclass video talking about how to do it, like, you know, essentially with like one guy that you trust in Mike Evans.
Yeah.
I just really, really hope that he doesn't. I just don't want to watch it. I really don't. I
don't blame you. Don't blame you at all.
Too much. I'm so happy that my boy Jarrett knocked out Green Bay because I'm so happy I don't have to watch that.
I'm still extremely pissed at the officiating because I feel like the Rams should have won that game and sent Jared Goff to the playoffs.
And listen,
we should be watching him today in the playoffs.
We absolutely should, and they would have such a better shot at beating the Niners because
totally 100% agree.
Like, in a shootout, which that game would have been, I'm going to take the Lions. I think.
Yeah, because I feel like where the 49ers get themselves in trouble is when they have to put together drive after drive after drive of scoring offenses. Right. When they're playing from behind, that's where that game plan is going to get difficult when you have a limited 7th round pick as your quarterback.
Right. But yeah, you know, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for listening.
Appreciate you guys listening.
Duval.
Nick wanted to say go Jags there for a second, I think.
I did.
Yeah, he did.
Rams
go Rams.
Rams house.
Thanks for listening. We love you guys. Enjoy Wild Card Weekend. If you place any bets, tag them on Twitter so that we can see what you guys are placing. We could ride with you potentially. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow on Twitter. Follow across all socials. All podcast platforms. We're here. So
yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate it. Subscribe. Do all that fun stuff. Take care.
Go Rams. Peace.